In this world, the blood of the weak is spilled without mercy, and the strong drink it, fueling their dominance. The story starts in a forest a peaceful deer grazes, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. A shadowy figure spots it and identifies it as easy prey. Two hunters lurking in the bushes, one of them take aim with their arrows, reminding each other to stay calm and focused, recalling their training. The bow stretches taut, ready to release its deadly payload. The deer hears a loud sound and is startled. The arrow flies, but the deer bolts away, leaving the hunters in frustration. One hunter yells out in dismay, calling for Johann. The hunter's voice echoes through the forest. Filled with disappointment and anger, he scolds Johann for breaking his bow instead of catching the prey, his frustration boiling over. Johann examines the broken bow, wondering if it snapped too easily because it was too ion. The hunter, however, is devastated, having bought the bow just a week ago and even naming it Angela. Tears well up in the hunter's eyes as he laments Johann's decision to become a hunter despite his lack of skill. He knew it was a bad idea from the start. He suggests Johann should have learned swordsmanship instead, perhaps hoping for a better outcome. Johann remains silent, but the hunter continues, explaining that swordsmanship doesn't make money until one gets hired. The hunter's curiosity piqued by something, but Johann brushes it off, insisting they move elsewhere. Money is what he needs to survive in this rotten world. Johann's thoughts darken as he contemplates the harsh reality of his new world. Johann Eitz, formerly Kim Johann, finds himself reincarnated in another world after an unexpected accident. Being reborn as a noble wasn't bad, but he's at the bottom of his family's hierarchy. Inheriting name or wealth is out of the question, and he considers himself lucky if he isn't stripped naked and kicked out during his siblings' power struggles. The hunter signals to stop, interrupting Johann's thoughts. The biggest problem of all reveals itself as they come across a grisly scene. Before them, wolves are tearing apart a dead body. The hunter identifies it as a pack of wolves. An arrow suddenly lands beside the wolves, startling them. The hunter's arrow scares the wolves away, leaving the scene eerily quiet. Johann thinks deeply about the theme of the world he has reincarnated into. Looking at the dead body, he realizes the medieval era is very realistic and cruel. Death doesn't even let them rest in this world. Johann wonders if the dead could be from their village, but the hunter is unsure. One thing is certain, the weak are nothing but prey for the strong in this world. As expected, Johann thought to himself, to avoid becoming prey in this age, he needed something more than just strength. That something was money. When he first arrived in this world, he had hoped for amazing abilities, but reality had other plans. Understanding that no such powers existed, he changed his goal. Money became his new obsession. With money, he could leave this territory and do anything. Becoming a merchant or even a free farmer seemed within reach. Money was everything. No matter what it took, he vowed to scrape together every coin. Just then, a village hunter approached, holding a medicinal herb. The hunter showed him the little devil grass, a rare herb excellent for stopping bleeding and boosting alertness. Johann's eyes gleamed with interest, already calculating its worth. Hunters are always knowledgeable when it comes to herbs, the hunter explained, but Johann was more interested in its potential profit. It must be expensive, Johann thought, quickly picking the herb. The hunter, annoyed by his greedy act, watched him closely. The hunter's annoyance grew as Johann's greed showed no bounds. Suddenly, the hunter noticed something on the ground. He pointed it out to Johann, who quickly denied ownership. "This isn't mine," Johann insisted. "Someone must have dropped it." The hunter found it impossible, as no one came this deep into the forest except them. "Wait," the hunter said, a sense of unease creeping in. "Tell me," he urged, his voice filled with concern. At that instant, a scream echoed through the forest, sending a chill down their spines. "Somebody help me!" A desperate voice cried out. "Is anyone here?" The two rush towards the sound, their hearts pounding with urgency. As they get closer, their faces twist in shock, the source of the cries becoming clear. A little girl perched on a tree branch, her eyes wide with terror as wolves encircle her. She lets out a blood-curdling scream, begging for someone, anyone, to save her. The hunter's eyes widen in recognition. That kid is Robert's daughter, Dell. But why is a child this deep into the forest? The wolves' attention shifts abruptly to the hunter, their eyes gleaming with hunger. There are too many wolves. The hunter realizes they can't handle this alone and suggests falling back to call for backup. Suddenly, Johann starts running toward the wolves, leaving the hunter stunned. The hunter shouts that it's too dangerous, those aren't ordinary wolves but people-eaters, true predators. Johann reassures him, saying he'll draw their attention so the hunter can rescue Dell. The hunter can't believe Johann is offering himself as bait just to save a mere commoner. Johann chuckles to himself, seemingly unfazed. Johann muses that if he knew this would happen, he would have rushed learning how to hunt a bit more. He didn't realize this place was a gold mine. Counting the wolves, Johann estimates at least 10. If he sells all those pelts, he'll make a fortune. Good! Johann grins, telling the wolves to wait for him, his precious moneymakers, as he charges forward with a battle cry, swinging a shabby sword around like a total newbie. Johann's skills leave much to be desired. The village hunter watches in disbelief, questioning the messed-up swordsmanship on display. The wolf, unimpressed by Johann's antics, charges at him with a snarl. Because apparently even wild beasts have standards. One of the wolves leaps at Johann, aiming straight for him, so much for waiting for their master's command. The wolf bites down on Johann's sword, and the once shabby weapon now faces its ultimate test. Spoiler alert, it fails. With a crunch, the wolf's jaw crushes the sword, turning it into a pile of useless metal. Johann's face falls faster than his sword's integrity. The sword shatters to pieces, leaving Johann holding nothing but air and regret. His shock echoes through the forest, or at least it would if anyone cared. Before Johann can even process his newfound weaponless state, another wolf lunges at him. Because when it rains, it pours, and when it pours, it's usually wolves. The wolf's attack lands, biting Johann's neck. The hunter watches in horror, his screams of "Sir" falling on deaf ears and even deafer wolves. The hunter's shock is palpable, his cries of "Sir Inahan" echoing through the forest. Meanwhile, Johann's probably wishing he'd taken up knitting instead of sword fighting. At the same time, within the Eitz territory of Bald-Trodden Village, the Eitz family's territorial inspection procession is passing through. Because nothing says important business like a leisurely stroll through the countryside, the village commoners, wearing tattered clothes, watch the procession pass by. Their ragged attire is a stark contrast to the finery on display, reminding everyone that fashion is the true divide between classes. The villagers stand in stark contrast to the procession, their tattered clothes and weary faces painting a picture of hardship and neglect. The Lord's concubine wrinkles her nose in disgust, the foul smell of the village assaulting her senses. Madame Eitz, as she is known, can barely contain her revulsion. Philip, the first son of the Lord, watches silently, his thoughts unreadable. His presence is a stark contrast to the scene unfolding before him. The Lord, Gesen Eitz, lets out a loud, drunken laugh. The stench of the village is nothing new to him, and he comments on it with a sneer. This cursed, miserable countryside is a blight on his senses. Philip turns to his father, apologizing for Johann's absence. He can't believe that his brother would dare to be absent during a territorial inspection. He offers to send out soldiers to find the missing brat. Gesen's face darkens with anger at the mention of Johann's name. "Forget him," Gesen snarls. "Why bother searching for that dimwit? If he dies somewhere like his wretched mother, what concern is it of his?" Suddenly something catches Gesen's eye. His attention is drawn to a stack of hay near the entrance. "What is this?" Gesen demands, his curiosity piqued by the unusual sight. The villagers tremble, offering a shaky explanation. Behind the stack of hay are traces of Sir Johann's training. They covered them up because they looked unsightly. Gesen scoffs at the mention of training. "Pathetic," he mutters, his disdain evident. "Apathetic training indeed," Gesen sneers, his voice dripping with contempt. But then something else catches his eye. A fist-sized imprint on a nearby tree sends a jolt of shock through him. The imprint is unmistakable, a testament to the raw power that created it. Gesen's mind races with the implications. Gesen stumbles upon a clearing filled with destroyed trees. the aftermath of Johann's training leaving him in shock and disbelief. Back to Johann. The wolves are relentlessly attacking him, their fangs aiming for any exposed flesh. But Johann's hands are as hard as steel, the wolf fangs unable to penetrate his defenses. With a swift motion, Johann throws the wolf away, confirming his thoughts. Fighting with a sword just isn't his style. This time he'll fight his way, inviting the wolves to bring it on, calling them his adorable little money makers. Survival of the fittest is the name of the game in this era. And Johann needs money to avoid becoming prey. As the pack of wolves charges at him, he realizes that to earn that money, he needs overwhelming strength. Clenching his fist, Johann prepares for an attack, his determination to transcend human limitations evident in his stance. With a powerful strike, Johann smashes the wolf with his bare hand, proving his strength is more than enough to overcome any challenge. The hunter's jaw drops in sheer disbelief, his eyes wide with shock as he witnesses the unimaginable. Johann's hands clamp around the wolf's body, his muscles flexing as he crushes it with terrifying ease. One by one, the wolves fall victim to his relentless assault, their bodies thrown and pummeled into the ground like rag dolls. Grabbing another wolf by the neck, Johann's grip tightens, his strength proving to be an insurmountable force. With a swift motion, he crushes the wolf and hurls its lifeless body aside, his power leaving no room for doubt. The hunter stutters, his voice barely a whisper as he struggles to comprehend the sheer magnitude of Johann's strength, his mind racing with disbelief. The remaining wolves cower in fear, their instincts screaming at them to flee from the madman before them, while Johann pauses, a rare moment of introspection crossing his face as he questions the worth of his overwhelming power. Johann had no choice but to accept the harsh reality of his new life, where survival was far from guaranteed and every day was a struggle. His brothers, higher in rank and merciless in their cruelty, tormented him constantly. They hurled insults and beat him, their voices echoing with threats and venom, showing off their status with every strike. With every threat and beating, Johann began to understand the brutal nature of this world. The constant abuse made it clear that no one would care if he was beaten to death. As a young boy, Johann realized the only person he could rely on was himself. The harsh lessons of his environment taught him that survival depended solely on his own strength and wits. This realization led him to ponder what he needed to do to survive in this medieval world. The answer was clear. He had to become stronger, smarter, and more resilient. Fortunately, Johann had an advantage over others in this era. His past life as a modern student who had studied endlessly for jobs and countless exams had equipped him with knowledge that medieval people couldn't even imagine. With this knowledge, Johann decided to use his modern understanding to his advantage. He crafted a training regimen based on modern exercise science and practiced practical, close combat martial arts. His training wasn't just physical. He also focused on constructing a nutritionally balanced diet. Every aspect of his preparation was meticulously planned and executed. Day in and day out, Johann pushed his limits. His high-intensity training and disciplined lifestyle became his new norm, all in the pursuit of survival. Years of relentless effort accumulated, transforming him into a formidable individual. His journey was far from easy, but Johann was determined to overcome the odds, and so his training continued, each day bringing him closer to his goal. The once helpless boy was now a force to be reckoned with, ready to face whatever challenges this medieval world threw at him. After several years of endless training, Johann had transformed into a formidable force. His journey from a tormented boy to a resilient survivor was complete, and he was ready to take on the medieval world with all its challenges. His strength grew even more after several years of relentless training, turning him into a force to be reckoned with. With his bare hands, he destroyed trees, showcasing his overwhelming power and leaving a trail of splintered wood in his wake. With each training session, his body displayed even more overwhelming strength, making everyone wonder if this power was a blessing from above or a new trial to endure. Shifting back to the present, Johann stood victorious beside the remnants of the wolf pack, a stark contrast to his intense training montages. He took a moment to catch his breath, wiping his brow as he sighed in relief, the adrenaline slowly fading. Surveying the scene, he noted that all the wolves were destroyed, their once fearsome forms now lifeless on the ground. A village hunter rushed over, checking on Dell, the young girl, and expressing his relief that she was safe. Dell, still shaken, let out a cry of distress. The hunter sighed, realizing the gravity of the situation and the danger they had all just faced. Dell turned to Johann, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and gratitude. She scolded him for his reckless actions, questioning if he understood the danger he had put himself in. But despite her scolding, she couldn't help but express her gratitude for his brave actions. She admitted that she was moved by his honorable deed and thanked him on behalf of the villagers. Meanwhile, Johann was reveling in his victory, already picking out the best corpse of the wolf, wondering which one would sell for the highest price. He chuckled to himself, barely hearing the hunter's words as he was lost in his thoughts. The hunter's voice barely registered as he muttered about nothing, pulling Johann from his thoughts. Turning to the hunter, he asked if his name was Dell and if he was okay. The hunter, grateful for the rescue, assured him he was fine thanks to Johann's help. Suddenly, Dell's expression darkened, a shadow passing over his face as if sensing something amiss. Before anyone could react, another monster materialized behind them, its presence sending a chill down their spines. Both the hunter and Johann whirled around, their hearts pounding with the sudden appearance of the new threat. Towering before them was a massive, terrifying wolf monster, its eyes gleaming with a predatory light. The wolf loomed over Johann, its sheer size and menacing aura making it clear that this was no ordinary beast. The hunter's voice trembled as he exclaimed about the monster, fear gripping him tightly. Panicking, the hunter urged Johann to run, insisting that such a monster required an entire army to defeat. Johann, however, stood his ground, muttering to himself about how he thought this world was just a normal medieval one, but now faced with monsters. Looking up at the wolf, he asked if it was the leader, apologizing for killing its underlings and mentioning how wolf pelts sell for a high price. The wolf growled menacingly, its eyes locked onto Johann, clearly seeing him as prey. Johann could feel the wolf's predatory gaze, but he stood firm, declaring that it didn't matter how the wolf saw him. The wolf growled again, its stance ready to pounce, the tension in the air thickening as the standoff continued. The wolf lunges at Johann, but he barely dodges the attack, the beast's claws whistling through the air just inches from his face. Whatever this creature is, it's not giving up without a fight. Johann quickly picks up a stone, his eyes gleaming with determination. That hide will sell for a fortune, and he's not about to let this beast ruin his payday. With a swift motion, he smashes the stone into the wolf's head, the impact echoing through the forest. That should do it. But the wolf shakes it off like it's nothing more than a pesky fly. Seriously, what is this thing made of? Johann groans in frustration, realizing he's scratched the wolf's hide. Great. Now the price will drop. And all this effort might be for nothing. The wolf growls angrily, its eyes locked onto Johann. This is not going to end well. Then it lets out a howl so loud it feels like the very air is vibrating. Suddenly, losing his strength, Johann's vision starts to fade to black. The howl is so piercing that Johann covers his ears, trying to block out the sound. Too bad wolves don't come with volume controls. Johann's vision blurs, and he feels himself losing consciousness. What is happening to him? As his vision fades to black, Johann's last thought is that he might not make it out of this forest alive. Suddenly, Johann sees a vision of a clash against a knight, the battle fierce and intense. This is getting weirder by the second. In the vision, the knight's sword swings, and Johann's head goes flying. Well, that escalated quickly. Johann jolts awake from the nightmare, his heart pounding in his chest. Note to self, avoid wolf fights and mysterious visions in the future. Confusion grips Johann as he struggles to piece together the fragments of his nightmare. The lingering unease of the wolf fight and mysterious visions leaves him disoriented and questioning what just happened. His thoughts race, trying to make sense of the chaos. The lingering fear of the unknown gnaws at him, making him wonder about the implications of his dream. A sudden realization hits him as he notices something missing. The eerie feeling of loss settles in, making his heart race even faster. Looking around, he sees the hunter and Del, both unconscious but seemingly unharmed. Relief washes over him, but the confusion remains. Johann takes a deep breath, reassuring himself that everyone is safe. The weight of responsibility settles on his shoulders as he realizes he needs to get them back to safety quickly. He carries both Del and the hunter, his mind still reeling from the unknown events. The urgency to return to the village grows, fueled by the fear of more monsters appearing. Glancing at the corpses of the wolves, a mix of emotions surges through him. The reality of the situation sinks in, but there's no time to dwell on it. A fleeting thought crosses his mind about the wolf pelts, but he quickly dismisses it. Survival is the priority now, and he needs to focus on getting back to the village. As Johann travels back to the village, the weight of his companions and the events of the night weigh heavily on his mind. The journey seems longer than usual, each step a reminder of the strange and terrifying night. Approaching the village, he notices it's still brightly lit. The sight brings a mix of relief and curiosity. Are the villagers out searching for Del? The thought crosses his mind, followed by the realization that despite his intentions, he did save Del. A faint hope sparks within him as he imagines his father's reaction. Maybe, just maybe, this could earn him some points with his father. The thought of being named successor or even appointed to the guards brings a small smile to his face, imagining a life without worrying about food. But reality quickly sets in and he sighs, dismissing the grandiose thoughts. Even if he doesn't become successor, perhaps his father would at least appoint him to the guards. That would be a step up from his current situation. As they close in on the village, a faint light catches his eye. The sight of a torch in the distance piques his curiosity, and he wonders who it could be. The torchlight grows brighter as he approaches, revealing the villagers gathered in the middle. Among them stands Phillips, and Johann can't help but feel a mix of relief and apprehension. The sight of the villagers and Phillips in the middle leaves him momentarily speechless. The events of the night have left him with more questions than answers, and he can't help but wonder what awaits him next. As he stands there, taking in the scene, a single thought echoes in his mind. What now? Before he can even process that thought, Philip storms in, yelling his name like a thunderclap. Johann barely has time to react before his brother's furious voice echoes again, demanding to know where he's been and scolding him for disappearing on the day of their father's inspection. Johann's eyes widen as he suddenly remembers the inspection, his face paling as he mutters to himself, realizing he's in deep trouble. Their father, Gason, dismounts from his horse, his expression dark and stormy. He mutters about Johann's insolence, his voice dripping with disdain. As Gason steps down, his presence looms over Johann, who stutters and tries to explain that he had unavoidable circumstances, but Gason isn't having any of it. He takes out his axe, the cold glint of the blade silencing Johann's excuses. The air grows tense as Gason commands silence, his grip tightening around the axe handle. He roars at Johann, accusing him of ignoring him and threatening to crack open his insolent head. Looks like Johann's day just went from bad to worse, and he's not even sure how it happened. Johann curses his luck, barely escaping with his life, only to face more nonsense. Missing the wolf pelts doesn't help, and he sarcastically remarks about life's hardships. But then, a light bulb moment strikes. Maybe, just maybe, he can turn this mess into an opportunity. Johann defends himself, claiming he wasn't skipping the inspection on purpose. He was out there playing hero, saving people in the forest. Who knew? Suddenly, Del's father rushes in, concern etched all over his face, as he calls out for Del. Tears stream down Del's father's face as he expresses his relief. He's been searching everywhere, and is just glad Del is all right. Overwhelmed with emotion, Del's father repeats just how glad he is. Johann starts his tale, asking if they know what happened. Del was surrounded by a dozen man-eating wolves in the woods. He fought them off and saved the child. The villagers are amazed as Johann explains he couldn't make the inspection because he was too busy fulfilling his duty as a knight's son, saving lives and all. Bowing his head, Johann pleads for forgiveness, promising to continue his best efforts for the safety of the estate. He even boldly requests the guard captain position, believing his actions have earned him the right. Confident in his self-promotion, Johann thinks his performance was perfect. He is so impressed with himself that he believes any interviewer would hire him on the spot. The Lord bursts into laughter, questioning Johann's story and asking for proof of his supposed heroic deeds. Annoyance flashes across Johann's face as he realizes his father doesn't believe him. Frustrated, Johann insists he is not lying, trying to convince his father of his truthfulness. In a bid to prove his story, Johann claims he even met the great dark wolf, leaving the villagers surprised. The Lord yells for silence, cutting Johann off mid-sentence. Accusing Johann of lying, the Lord threatens to punish him severely. Johann, taken aback, challenges his father to a duel, declaring he will prove his skills. Sighing, Johann admits he doesn't like his father, but still doesn't want to fight him. However, he sees no other choice. The Lord smirks and agrees to the duel, wanting to see how skilled Johann really is. The Lord commands Johann to raise his sword, declaring they will duel using nothing but a weapon. Confusion spreads across Johann's face as he questions the use of a weapon. Realizing his father never taught him how to use a weapon, Johann's frustration peaks, and he curses under his breath. Facing each other, Gieson commands Johann to unsheath his sword, his voice echoing with authority. Johann attempts to comply but realizes his sword is already broken, his frustration evident. Gieson curses under his breath and turns to Philip, demanding he lend his sword. Philip hesitantly agrees. Philip whispers to Johann, urging him to beg for forgiveness, seeing it as the only way to survive this situation. Beg for forgiveness? Johann thinks to himself, refusing the idea. He believes he has done nothing wrong and stands his ground, declaring a man does not run away. Raising the sword, Johann commands Philip to move and expresses his hope to learn from this duel. The Lord glances at Johann, letting out a disdainful "Humph." Johann convinces himself this is for the best. If he shows everyone his skills, they will have to acknowledge him. He is determined to prove his worth. Preparing to attack, Johann starts screaming, his determination palpable. The Lord is visibly shaken by Johann's sudden outburst, his composure faltering. Johann emanates a terrifying aura, causing the Lord to exclaim in shock, questioning what this monstrous aura is. With a powerful slash, Johann launches his attack, his movements swift and precise. The Lord quickly defends himself with his axe, the clash of metal ringing through the air. Suddenly, Johann's sword breaks under the pressure, shattering into pieces. The broken pieces of the sword fly towards Johann, causing him to flinch. However, the Lord remains unscathed, his armor protecting him from the flying debris. Unscathed and furious, the Lord leaps up, unleashing a powerful attack while shouting about parasites. Johann barely dodges the attack, narrowly escaping the Lord's wrath by an inch. The Lord's intensity escalates as he reveals his disdain, claiming Johann would still be useless even if taught to wield a sword. Johann continues to dodge the relentless axe slashes, each swing barely missing him as the Lord declares he will never be surpassed. The Lord's rage peaks, insisting his estate is his alone and no one, not even Johann or the Emperor, can take it from him. Johann internally questions the Lord's sanity, wondering if the alcohol has finally gotten to him, but quickly dismisses the thought as irrelevant. Blood obscures Johann's vision, making it difficult for him to see clearly. Suddenly, Philip's voice rings out, calling Johann's name. The axe swings dangerously close, now right in front of Johann's face, leaving him little room to react. The villagers watch in confusion, their murmurs filling the air as the intense battle unfolds before them. Johann defends himself with his broken sword, desperately trying to block the Lord's relentless attacks. The Lord pushes down with his axe, further shattering Johann's sword and leaving him defenseless. With the axe now right before him and his sword destroyed, Johann realizes he has lost the battle. Just as Johann accepts his defeat, the Lord suddenly stops his attack, leaving an eerie silence in the air. Gieson, the Lord of the territory and Johann's father, coldly reminds him to know his place. With a final threat, Gieson warns Johann that if he ever sees him again, he will not hesitate to bash his head in. Leaving Johann defeated and broken, the Lord departs, his footsteps echoing in the tense silence. The villagers, having witnessed the entire ordeal, flock to Johann, their voices filled with concern and sympathy. Inside the village church, Father Valberg, the village priest, expresses his outrage at the unfair treatment Johann received from his father. Johann, worried about eavesdroppers, tries to hush the priest, but Father Valberg, being from the Vatican, couldn't care less about who hears him. The priest continues his rant, emphasizing that a knight should have honor and questioning how a father could treat his son so poorly. Johann, trying to downplay the situation, reassures the priest that he is fine and at least alive. Father Valberg, still fuming, finds the whole situation ridiculous, especially since Gason was dressed in full armor and must have lost his mind from drinking. Johann's expression turns sad as he reflects on the reality of his situation. He admits to himself that he never learned how to use the sword properly and didn't realize how powerless he was. Father Valberg, trying to reason with Johann, explains that Gason has been in many battles, inherited the family techniques, and has the experience to back it up, making Johann's loss understandable. The priest then shares a story about Sir Britz from the next estate over, who reportedly killed 300 serf soldiers on his own, leaving Johann amazed. Johann, realizing the importance of technique and experience, admits that he thought he could easily defeat his drunkard father after fighting off a huge black wolf. Father Valberg is surprised by Johann's revelation, his expression shifting from anger to astonishment. Father Valberg's eyes widened as he addressed Johann with a mix of shock and urgency. The revelation of a black wolf sighting in the forest sent a wave of disbelief through him, his voice rising in astonishment. Johann, slightly taken aback by the priest's intense reaction, hesitantly confirmed the sighting. He added that Joseph and Dell had seen it too, further fueling Father Valberg's astonishment. Father Valberg, now deeply concerned, muttered a prayer under his breath. Johann, confused and slightly alarmed, pressed for an explanation, his curiosity piqued by the priest's sudden shift in demeanor. Pulling out an old book, Father Valberg began to explain the significance of the black wolf sighting. His voice trembled as he revealed that black wolves had long been considered a taboo omen. He continued, his voice heavy with foreboding, explaining that the black wolves were seen as harbingers of death and misfortune. Opening the book to a specific page, he showed Johann an illustration of the black wolf, its dark form stark against the yellowed parchment. The priest's voice dropped to a solemn tone as he revealed that the black wolves were called an omen of death by the priests of old. According to century-old stories, black wolves came bearing death and blood, their appearance foretelling great calamity. Johann listened, his expression growing more serious with each word. Johann, trying to lighten the mood, shrugged off the superstition with a smirk. But even as he joked about the black wolf being a premonition of his duel with his father, a hint of unease lingered in his voice. Father Valberg, noticing Johann's discomfort, quickly reassured him. The stories about the black wolves were just old tales, nothing to be taken too seriously. Perhaps God was helping Johann, the priest mused, given his good nature and selflessness. Johann, however, was quick to downplay the compliment, his mind still on the money he hoped to earn. As Johann smiled, Father Valberg praised him for putting others above himself. Johann, caught off guard, could only respond with a confused and humorous remark about his true motivation being money. That night, as the conversation faded into the background, an eerie silence settled over the village. Suddenly, the tranquility was shattered by screams of agony echoing from near the Eitz estate in the Britz barony. The night air filled with pleas for help and cries of terror, painting a chilling picture of unseen horrors unfolding. Amidst the chaos, a mother and daughter huddled together, their pleas for mercy echoing through the night. Their screams pierced the darkness, a desperate cry for life that went unanswered. But their cries were abruptly silenced, their lives brutally cut short. The night swallowed their voices, leaving only the cold echo of their final moments. Around the village, the ground was littered with countless corpses, a grim testament to the merciless slaughter. The once peaceful estate now resembled a graveyard, the air thick with the stench of death. A soldier, His face, devoid of any remorse, scoffed at the sight of the villagers attempting to flee. He mocked their futile efforts, convinced that their fate was sealed either way. Shrugging off the massacre, he remarked on the cruelty of the scene. Yet his words lacked any genuine emotion, as if he was merely stating a mundane observation. Another soldier chimed in, discussing the gruesome task of killing everyone in the estate and burning the bodies. The conversation was chillingly casual, as if they were talking about a routine chore. Their indifference was palpable as they joked about their work and the gold they would receive. The value of life seemed to mean nothing to them, their laughter echoing through the night. Among the soldiers stood a towering figure, his presence commanding and ominous. He overshadowed the others, a silent sentinel amidst the chaos. A soldier approached this imposing figure, addressing him as Sir Karamov. He reported that the mercenaries had finished their cleanup, presenting the seal ring of the Brits family as proof. Karamov, the commander and sword of the Holy Empire, took the ring, his expression unreadable. He muttered the name Brits, his voice a low growl that sent shivers down the spines of those around him. He had heard tales of Brits' prowess, how he had single-handedly slain 300 serf soldiers. But looking at the torn and shattered body, Karamov scoffed. Brits hadn't even lasted 2 attacks, a pathetic end for someone who was supposed to be a formidable foe. In his eyes, Brits wasn't even worth being called a toy. With a sneer still lingering from his thoughts about Brits, Karamov declares himself as the Sword of the Holy Empire, a title that echoes with authority and menace. His voice booms as he proclaims his role as His Imperial Majesty's proxy and the recollector of seals, vowing to punish all corrupt nobles as his emperor wishes. The air grows heavier with each word, his intent clear and chilling. But loyalty to the emperor comes with its rewards, he continues, promising infinite gold and honor to those who stand with the emperor. His words paint a picture of a man who values allegiance above all else. Suddenly, his tone shifts, commanding his forces to kill, steal from, and burn them all. With a final, thunderous order, he sends his troops forth, declaring the Eitz estate as their next target. The stage is set for a brutal campaign, and Karamov's fury leads the charge. As the troops march on, chaos erupts with 2 knights locked in a fierce duel. One of them was none other than Karamov himself, his fury still burning hot. The other knight lunges at him, sword swinging with deadly intent. Karamov swiftly raises his blade, deflecting the attack with a clash of steel. But he doesn't stop there, immediately countering with a strike of his own. The other knight's head is cleanly severed, flying through the air like a grisly projectile. It hits the ground with a sickening thud, rolling to a stop. The helmet cracks open, revealing the face within. To everyone's shock, it was Johann's head, looking as surprised as anyone could in such a situation. Suddenly, Johann jolts awake, gasping for air as if the nightmare was real. He finds himself safely in his bed, the horrors of the dream still fresh in his mind. Dreams linger like an unshakable guest, and Johann found himself still trapped in the echoes of his nightmare. The weight of the dream's horror clung to him, making it hard to shake off even in the waking world. Ever since encountering the Black Wolf, his nights had been haunted by the same terrifying visions, replaying in his mind like a broken record. Father Valberg's words echoed in his memory, a warning from ancient times about the Black Wolf being an omen of misfortune. The creature's existence itself was said to spread bloodshed and death, earning it the grim title of the Sign of Death among priests. The warning was clear, but Johann couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and skepticism. Dismissing the warnings as mere superstition, he tried to convince himself that the priest's tales were just legends. After all, he hadn't done anything to harm the Black Wolf, or so he thought. A sudden memory flashed in his mind, a rock, a throw, and the Black Wolf. The pieces started to come together, and a sinking feeling settled in his stomach. The truth hit him like a ton of bricks. He had thrown a rock at the wolf, and it wasn't just any rock, it was a big one. The realization dawned on him, and he couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. Forget it. Whatever happens, happens. Dwelling on it won't change a thing. He decided to push the thoughts aside and focus on something more productive. Training. Later that day, Johann was deep into his training, trying to clear his mind of the lingering thoughts. But his brothers had other plans, their taunts echoing through the air like a broken record. They reminded him of Father Valberg's warning. Their voices dripping with sarcasm. If he didn't want to die, he shouldn't make himself noticeable. Easy for them to say, but Johann wasn't about to back down. Acting cheeky even after getting beaten senseless, he crawled back out to prove his toughness. Chopping wood all day might not make him stronger, but it sure made him determined. And maybe, just maybe, it would keep the nightmares at bay. But his determination didn't impress everyone. With a disgusting smirk, the Johann brothers mock him, questioning if breaking a log is really impressive. They call it a lowly trick, insisting that someone of his status could never have real strength. They scoff at the idea of him joining the Guard Corps, saying their father would never appoint trash like him. Their words are harsh, but he doesn't back down. As the Johann brothers continue their taunts, he stretches out his hand, touching the tree with his fist. They sneer, saying that if their father ever used him, it would be to crack his skull and feed him to the pigs. But he doesn't react to their words. Instead, he focuses on the tree, his fist connecting with the trunk in a mighty punch. The tree snaps in half and falls, leaving the Johann brothers shocked. Their eyes pop out like in a cartoon, mouths agape in disbelief. He turns to them, a calm demeanor about him. He asks if they said something, inviting them to come closer and repeat it. But the Johann brothers, now afraid, run away. They shout that they're good, asking why they would go there. They promise to tell their father everything, their bravado from earlier completely gone. He watches them leave, calling them pathetic idiots. He wonders how they can live with so little thought, suggesting they ought to prepare to make a living. But he shakes his head, deciding there's no point in worrying about others. It's time to get back to training. As he prepares to continue, Philip appears. He confirms what the Johann brothers said, that their father has no intention of appointing him to any position. He humps, saying he figured as much. But he considers that since his father didn't kill him, it could be worse. Philip asks if he's not disappointed. He shrugs, saying it is what it is. He'll have to find another way to make a living. Philip drops a bombshell, saying their father fears him. This makes him freeze, the words hitting him hard. Both brothers stand in silence, the weight of Philip's words hanging heavy in the air. The revelation leaves him stunned, rendering him speechless. The atmosphere grows tense as the truth sinks in. In this moment of silence, the brothers stand still, the weight of their father's fear a heavy burden on their shoulders. Breaking the silence, Philip admits Johann's strength, but quickly labels it a threat. The weight of his words hangs heavy in the air. He continues, stating their father's preference for obedience, something Johann clearly lacks. The tension between the brothers grows palpable. Philip's voice turns cold as he reveals their father's fear that Johann's strength will one day overthrow him, just as he did to their grandfather. Johann scoffs at the nonsense, his disbelief echoing in the room. Ignoring Johann's reaction, Philip orders a servant to bring something forth. The servant quickly obeys, fetching a sack. The servant rummages through the sack, pulling out an item that catches Johann's eye. Johann's eyes brighten with curiosity as he tries to make sense of what he's seeing. Philip explains the items: a plain surcoat, a long sword of unknown origin, and a spare set of chest plate, all stored in the castle. Johann's interest is piqued as Philip mentions these are the things he's longed for. Philip assures Johann that he is not like their father, his tone softer, almost reassuring. He values Johann's capabilities and promises that when he becomes Lord, he will appoint him as captain of the Eights Guard. With a final warning not to neglect his training and to stop causing trouble, Philip turns to leave. Johann protests, claiming he never causes trouble first. His voice echoes in the now empty room. But Philip's only response is a raised middle finger, a gesture that speaks volumes. With that, Philip and the servant leave, leaving Johann alone with his thoughts and the mysterious items. Johann's gaze falls upon the armor, his mind racing with possibilities. He realizes that the armor is the one from his dreams, a revelation that sends a shiver down his spine. Staring at the armor, Johann wondered if wearing it would seal his fate, leading him to the same grim end he experienced in his dreams. Yet despite the uncertainty gnawing at him, a strange sense of determination surged through his veins. convincing him that he could overcome whatever lay ahead, even without a shred of evidence to back up his newfound confidence. With a deep breath, Johann slipped into the armor, feeling its weight settle around him like a second skin. Piece by piece, he geared up, each clink of metal echoing his resolve to claim victory, no matter the cost. Later that day, the tavern erupted with laughter, the villagers' voices bouncing off the walls as they shared tales of Johann's exploits. Some villagers scoffed, accusing others of stretching the truth, while those telling the stories insisted every word was gospel. According to them, Sir Johann had slain wolves, but left their pelts behind, scoffing at the idea of a knight being motivated by money. He drew his sword solely to save Dell and Joseph, embodying righteousness and purity, the very model of a true knight. The villagers nodded in agreement, comparing Johann to Lord Gason, who they dismissed as a drunken, woman-chasing pig. They joked about Gason's antics, wondering why he hadn't met his end yet, given his excessive drinking. The tales grew wilder, with some villagers claiming Johann should have cut Gason's head off that day, laughing at the thought of Johann going easy on him. Even if Gason was his father, they scoffed. What did it matter? Johann's reputation as a true knight only grew in their eyes. Suddenly, one villager shouted, offering to buy drinks for everyone, insisting they drink as much as they wanted. A cloaked figure in the corner raised an eyebrow, wondering what had prompted such generosity. The villagers burst into celebration, their voices ringing out in gratitude, because Sir Johann had saved a villager's daughter, Dell, and now they toasted to his heroism, their cups raised high in honor of the righteous knight. Curiosity piqued, the villagers turned their attention to the cloaked figure, wondering aloud who this stranger might be. They couldn't recall having seen him around the village before. A dry chuckle escaped the cloaked figure as he revealed they had been bad-mouthing their lord right in front of a complete stranger, leaving the villagers uneasy. The cloaked figure mused that the villagers here weren't afraid of anything, his words laced with sarcasm. The villagers exchanged confused glances, wondering what he meant by that. A smirk played on the cloaked figure's lips as he found their story quite interesting, his gaze fixed on the villagers who suddenly felt a chill run down their spines. Terror gripped the villagers as the cloaked figure leaned in, urging them to tell him more, his interest seemingly piqued by their tale. As night fell, the cloaked figure's thoughts lingered on the villagers' story, his curiosity far from satisfied. Johann strolled through the village, a content hum escaping his lips. His thoughts were filled with visions of his future, where Philip would appoint him captain of the guards once he became lord. His golden road had finally arrived, or so he thought, never expecting to depend on Philip. A sudden disgust washed over him as he noticed something amiss. His eyes landed on a man leaning against a wall outside, clearly drunk and in no state to be left alone. Johann sighed, realizing that a future captain of the guard couldn't just ignore a drunk citizen. He approached the man, gently shaking him awake. He warned the man that sleeping there would only make him catch a cold and offered to escort him home. The cloaked figure watched silently from the shadows, his presence unknown to Johann. Johann shivered. Feeling something cold against his neck, he reached up, his fingers brushing against something metallic and sharp. Before he could react, the cloaked figure appeared behind him, a knife pressed against his throat. Johann froze, his breath catching in his throat. Johann's eyes widened in shock and fear, his mind racing as he tried to comprehend what the hell was happening. Johann's mind raced with questions, desperately trying to figure out who this mysterious figure was. Could he be an assassin sent by Gason? No, that didn't make sense. Gason would have come to kill him himself. Then was it the madam? But Johann quickly dismissed that thought too. There was no way Philip would do something like this, right? Frustration set in as Johann realized he couldn't even guess who had sent this mysterious figure. The uncertainty was driving him crazy. With a shaky voice, Johann asked the cloaked figure what he wanted. The tension in the room was palpable. Johann, in a desperate attempt to save himself, offered everything he had to the cloaked figure, hoping that would be enough to let him go. The cloaked figure responded, stating that money wasn't his purpose. This only added to Johann's confusion and fear. Johann's mind was racing, trying to figure out what the cloaked figure wanted. Money wasn't the answer, so what could it be? The cloaked figure addressed Johann by name, sending a chill down his spine. He was about to ask a question, and Johann knew his life depended on the answer. The cloaked figure warned Johann that if his answers weren't satisfactory, he would slit his throat right there. The threat hung heavy in the air. Johann couldn't believe what he was hearing. A question out of nowhere, and his life was on the line. He had to get a grip and think fast. He had made it to the second round of an interview with a major corporation once, and he had failed. But now, he had to answer perfectly to survive. Johann steeled himself, ready to face whatever question the cloaked figure had for him. He had to survive. The cloaked figure checked Johann out, sizing him up in a way that made Johann feel even more uneasy. The cloaked figure commented on Johann's physique, finding it hard to believe that he was the son of someone he referred to as that pig. He then asked Johann if he was truly Gayson's son. Johann couldn't believe the question. Here he was, with his life in the hands of this mysterious figure, and this was the question he asked. Johann was at a loss for words. What was he supposed to say to that? Johann stumbles through his words, trying to make sense of the situation. He blurts out that a son can be born from a pig's bloodline, hoping it might be the right answer. Silence greets his statement, making the air even heavier. The cloaked figure stands motionless, offering no reaction. Johann's confusion grows, wondering why there's no response. Doubt creeps in as he questions if his answer was wrong. Suddenly, the cloaked figure bursts into loud laughter, catching Johann off guard. The figure declares that Johann's answer is greatly pleasing. Seizing the moment, Johann pleads for his release, but the figure swiftly shuts him down with a firm refusal. With a terrifying expression, the figure proclaims that Johann Eitz is now his possession. Johann's confusion hits a new high as he struggles to understand what's happening. He stutters, demanding to know what the figure means. This man is Kegel, the Empire's greatest assassin and the Nasos Guild's poison master. His reputation precedes him, striking fear into the hearts of many. Kegel perfected his swordsmanship through countless assassinations, his movements resembling a serpent's, earned him the nickname Venom Serpent. However, even he had problems. Despite his prowess, he couldn't find a successor to inherit his swordsmanship. He searched everywhere, even within the Assassin's Guild, but sadly, only worthless insects who could never succeed him were all he found. A few showed potential, but none were quite up to his standards. Frustration fills the air as another candidate refuses the offer, preferring death over tarnishing their honor. Kegel's search for a successor hits another dead end. With a swift strike, Kegel ends the knight's life, adding another name to the growing list of those who chose death over dishonor. Over 30 heirs of knightly families have fallen by his hand, each choosing death in the name of honor. The search for a successor seems futile. Growing impatient, Kegel visits the Witch of the Empire seeking guidance in his relentless search. The witch's eerie laughter echoes through the dark room as she addresses the renowned assassin. The witch reveals that the disciple he seeks resides in Eitz Castle, a small forgotten rural territory, and is one of the sons of a lecherous drunkard lord. Kegel's interest peaks despite the unpromising location. Eitz Castle? That backwater place? Kegel scoffs, doubting that his successor could possibly be found in such a forgotten land. A gold coin could buy half that territory, he muses. The witch's laughter fills the room again as she offers to return his money if her prophecy displeases him. Kegel considers the offer, weighing the risks of offending a witch. Who knows what curse he might get from stealing a witch's coin? Kegel decides to believe her, desperate to find a successor after so many years of searching. Kegel wants to believe her. He has wasted too many years searching for a successor and has no time left to spare. Hope flickers within him as he sets off towards Eitz Castle. But even as he steps foot into the Eitz estate, doubt clings to him. The place seems too insignificant to harbor someone worthy of becoming his successor. Is the one worthy of becoming his successor really exist in this place? Kegel wonders, his mind filled with skepticism. If he doesn't like the brat, he'll kill him on the spot. My name is Kegel, and I am the Nessos Guild's guildmaster, he declares, his voice echoing with authority. He has no more time to waste, and the candidate will become his successor. Choose, Kegel commands, presenting the two paths before the candidate. Die here by his hand or learn his swordsmanship. These are the only two options. Mumble. How? The candidate stutters, confusion evident in his voice. Kegel, impatient, demands an answer, his gaze piercing through the uncertainty. Johann, stumbling over his words, suddenly blurts out a question, asking how much he needs to pay to learn Kegel's swordsmanship. Kegel, with a stern expression, firmly states that he is not accepting money for his teachings. Johann's eyes light up with the sparkle of gold coins as he realizes the opportunity before him. A guildmaster with incredible skill offering to teach him for free? What a jackpot indeed. Changing his manner to one of respect, Johann excitedly asks what took his master so long, expressing his lifelong wait for someone like Kegel. Kegel warns that his swordsmanship is that of an assassin, carrying a stigma that could bring dishonor to any knightly family. He continues, explaining that learning such skills may lead to a life of scorn and shame. Johann, undeterred, declares he doesn't care about honor or shame and begs Kegel to teach him. Kegel, after a moment of consideration, reluctantly agrees, muttering about this being a first for him. Johann, with a grin, starts to ask another question, but is interrupted by Kegel. Johann asks if he can get an allowance if he learns well, mentioning he is at the age where he really needs money. Kegel, shaking his head, remarks that Johann really is something else. Meanwhile, at Eit's castle, the Lord prepares to leave, with the concubine and Philip watching him depart. Gason, the Lord of the Territory and Johann's father, announces that the inspection is done, and he will be stepping out for a while. The concubine wishes him safe travels. Philip, the first son of the Lord and Johann's brother, steps forward and declares he will take care of the castle in Geson's absence. No sooner had the Lord left than the two began bickering, their voices echoing through the empty halls. The concubine scoffs, her eyes narrowing as she declares that no matter how much he struggles, this castle will be hers, because she's not just fighting for power, she's fighting for her future. Philip laughs off her claims as nonsense, asserting that the next lord of the castle will be none other than himself, Philip Eitz. His confidence is unshaken, his resolve firm. Gason, tired of their constant fighting, snaps and tells them to do whatever they want. He's had enough of their daily arguments and just wants some peace. Philip turns to his father, reminding him that Johann is yet to return, and asks what they should do. His concern for his brother is evident, but his duty to the castle comes first. Geson yells Philip's name, his frustration boiling over. He's had enough of their bickering and just wants a moment of peace. He tells Philip not to waste his time over that brat Johann. Geson's words are harsh, but his concern for his son's well-being is hidden beneath his gruff exterior. Philip understands and apologizes to his father. He knows his duty and won't let his father down, even if it means putting aside his personal feelings. He can't help but wonder where Johann is and what he's doing. His concern for his brother is evident, but he knows he has a duty to fulfill. Meanwhile, near the Eitz castle's forest, Kegel, the Empire's greatest assassin, decides to check how skilled Johann is. He's not sure what to expect, but he's ready for anything. Johann asks if he can borrow a sword, admitting that he often breaks them. Kegel agrees, and Johann is ready to prove himself. Kegel is taken aback, wondering how this brat is so reckless. He can't find a single thing he likes about Johann, but he's willing to give him a chance. He even considers killing Johann right then and there, but instead he asks if Johann is ready. The tension is high, and the stakes are even higher. Johann responds with a confident yes, ready to face whatever comes his way. He's determined to prove himself no matter the cost. Johann's movements are weird and amateurish, making Kegel question if he's really the son of a knightly family. He can't believe what he's seeing, and he's not sure what to expect. Kegel thinks that Johann must die as a warrior, but he's not sure if he's ready to make that call. The tension is high, and the outcome is uncertain. Johann asks if he has to use swordsmanship or if he can fight however he wants. Kegel tells him to do as he likes, and Johann is ready to prove himself no matter the cost. Kegel tells him to use his fists, rocks, blades, anything. It doesn't matter as long as he's ready to fight. Johann smiles, ready to face whatever comes his way. With a determined look, Johann raises his hand high, ready to strike. Then he lunges forward, attacking with his bare hands, his fists flying with surprising speed and force. Kegel stands shocked and surprised as Johann's fist connects with his sword, shattering it into countless pieces. The greatest assassin of the Empire can hardly believe his eyes. In that moment, Kegel realizes something profound about the young man before him. All of his doubts about Johann's abilities, every skepticism he had, were unwarranted. This brat, who he had underestimated, was far more powerful than he had ever imagined. Johann is monstrously strong, a force to be reckoned with, and Kegel finally sees the truth of it. The sword shatters into countless pieces, scattering across the ground like broken dreams. Before the fragments even settle, Johann counters with a punch so powerful that the air pressure alone leaves Kegel stunned. Kegel barely has time to process the force behind that punch, already imagining his bones and muscles turning to dust under its power. This isn't a human he's fighting against, but a lion, a beast of pure destruction. With a flick of his wrist, Kegel draws his sword, determination flashing in his eyes. He moves like a dancer, swift and precise, his blade finding its mark on Johann's face. Johann staggers back, his movements uncharacteristically clumsy as he struggles to keep up with Kegel's assault. A final strike lands, sending Johann crashing to the ground. The impact echoes through the room, dust swirling in the air as Johann lies motionless. Kegel stands over him, shaking his head in disbelief. He had struck with the flat side of the blade, yet Johann remains conscious, a testament to his ridiculous durability. With a hint of respect in his voice, Kegel admits that had Johann been born 1,000 years earlier, he would have been called a legendary hero. Johann, lying on the ground, manages a weak smile and thanks him for the compliment. Master. Kegel's tone shifts dramatically as he points out a critical weakness in Johann's abilities, leaving the compliment behind. Worry flashes across Johann's face as Kegel delivers a grim prediction. Death is inevitable if he doesn't address this flaw. Confusion takes over Johann's expression as he struggles to understand what Kegel means by his ominous words. Kegel explains the dangerous truth. Johann's uncontrollable strength will be his downfall, turning his greatest asset into a fatal liability. Disbelief fills Johann's voice as he protests, claiming he's not attacking himself and surely isn't that reckless. With a dramatic flourish, Kegel raises his cape, revealing an impressive arsenal of weapons hidden beneath. He hands Johann a sword and challenges him to attack again, testing his confidence in his abilities. Kegel sets the stakes higher, proposing a wager. If Johann can break his sword instead of his own, there will be a reward. Johann's eyes light up with golden coins at the mention of the prize, his interest piqued by the challenge and the potential reward. With renewed determination, Johann charges at Kegel, promising to hold him to his word if he succeeds. Kegel skillfully defends against Johann's attack, his sword meeting Johann's with precision. In an instant, Johann's sword shatters, sending fragments flying toward his face and leaving him vulnerable. Johann winces as he notices the cuts on his face from the flying fragments, realizing the consequences of his uncontrollable strength. Realization dawns on Johann as he connects the dots. This overwhelming power, it reminds him of his battles with his father. Kegel seizes the moment, pointing out that Johann's lack of control over his own strength led to his downfall. He emphasizes the need for Johann to master his power, hinting at dire consequences if he fails. A fragment of Johann's armor juts out, a stark reminder of his vulnerability. Kegel drives the point home, stating that without control, death is inevitable. Johann questions if the fragment was deliberately placed, to which Kegel confirms, showcasing his own proficiency with the sword. Johann begins to understand the lesson, realizing the importance of control. Determined, Johann vows to learn control over his strength, driven by his ambition to become the future guard captain of Alts. Kegel demonstrates the possibilities of restrained power, slicing through Johann's sword and damaging his armor with ease. The training continues, with Johann's sword cut in half and his armor damaged, a testament to Kegel's skill and Johann's lack of control. Johann is shocked as he realizes Kegel sliced through his armor using just the sword sheath. Kegel explains that with proper control, one can slice through anything, even without a sword. He hints at Johann's potential, suggesting that with control, he could be unstoppable. With an evil laugh, Kegel emphasizes the importance of controlling one's power, hinting at the immense potential Johann could unlock. Kegel decides that enough talk has been had, and it's time to get to training. Pointing his sword at Johann, he warns Johann that the training will be difficult and that he might even die, asking if he's ready to begin. With unwavering determination, Johann responds to his master's warning with a resounding affirmation, ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. As the sun rises the next day, the village awakes to a new beginning, unaware of the trials Johann has endured. Johann strolls through the village, his steps echoing the resilience he has built overnight. His face, a canvas of cartoonish injuries, tells a tale of the grueling training he has undergone. Reflecting on his progress, Johann acknowledges the difficulty of holding back, a stark contrast to his usual impulsiveness. He takes pride in no longer breaking his sword, but yearns for the day he can learn real swordsmanship. Suddenly, something catches his eye, diverting his attention from his musings. At the gate, a group of elf mercenaries stands, their presence sparking Johann's curiosity and a hint of bewilderment. Confusion fills the air as Johann questions their identity and purpose, only to be met with stern warnings from the mercenaries about the restricted area. Taken aback, Johann demands to know who they are to give him orders, his tone a mix of defiance and curiosity. The mercenaries, with an air of authority, begin to reveal their identity, leaving Johann in anticipation. They introduce themselves as His Imperial Majesty's directly affiliated mercenaries, the Wolves of Akiton, a name that resonates with power and prestige. Johann's eyes widen with excitement at the mention of mercenaries, his dreams of becoming a guard captain momentarily overshadowed by the allure of a more adventurous path. The mercenaries, noticing Johann's enthusiasm, boast about their incomparable pay, mentioning 2 golden coins for a single job, a sum that leaves Johann in awe. They caution him that his workout regimen might make him a bigger target, emphasizing that skill is what truly matters. Johann, realizing the truth in their words, agrees wholeheartedly. Johann marvels at the golden ensniad, realizing it surpasses even the prestige of being a guard captain, so he contemplates a career change, wondering if this new path is worth pursuing. Just as he pondered his future, the commander of the Akiton mercenaries approached, interrupting his thoughts. A menacing aura radiated from the commander, revealing him to be Karamov, a figure of intimidating presence. Sensing the aura, Johann's instincts kicked in and he quickly grabbed his sword, ready for action. But before he could react further, blades of the mercenaries surrounded his neck, leaving him in a precarious situation. Confused and startled, Johann questioned why he had attempted to unsheath his sword in the first place. The Akiton mercenaries, known as the Wolves of Akiton, reacted with fury, accusing him of daring to unsheath his sword in the presence of Sir Karamov and threatening to behead him. Karamov intervened, stopping the mercenaries and calming the situation. With a piercing gaze, Karamov intensely looked at Johann and demanded to know who he was. Instantly changing his tone to one of respect, Johann introduced himself as Johann Asno Knights, trying to diffuse the tension. At that moment, Karamov removed his helmet, revealing himself as the Holy Empire Emperor's Guard Knight. Johann realized he had put his hand on his sword without even knowing, understanding the gravity of his actions. A wave of unfamiliar emotions crashes over Johann, stronger than anything he has ever experienced, even when facing the Black Wu or his father's murderous intent. The air grows thick with tension as Johann feels the weight of a murderous intent pressing down on him, suffocating and relentless. It's as if an unseen force is closing in, leaving Johann feeling like a helpless prey standing before an apex predator. Terror grips Johann, his heart pounding as he realizes the gravity of his situation. Karamov's voice cuts through the tension, commanding Johann to move aside, his presence imposing and unyielding. Johann steps aside, revealing his fear to the Akiton mercenaries, who mock his terror with a mix of amusement and disbelief. As Karamov and the mercenaries pass through the gate, the Akiton wolves call out a sarcastic warning, their tone suggesting this might be their last encounter. Jane, the knight in training, hesitates and questions whether it's right to leave Johann in such a state, her concern evident in her voice. Karamov responds with a hint of sarcasm, claiming he doesn't want to cause a ruckus on such a fine day, but his tone shifts, leaving an ominous silence that suggests the day might not stay peaceful for long. Johann watches as the group leaves, his mind racing with questions about why a knight of the Emperor would be here, the mystery deepening his unease. Philip's shock echoes through the halls as he learns of Sir Karamov's arrival, his voice rising with disbelief and urgency. The unexpected presence of such an esteemed figure sends waves of confusion and curiosity through him. Rushing to the gate, Philip's mind raced with questions. Wondering why such an esteemed figure would come to a place like this, his thoughts a whirlwind of speculation and anticipation. With a formal greeting, Philip introduced himself as the next Lord of House Eitz, his voice steady but his eyes betraying a hint of nervousness. He inquired about the purpose of Sir Karamov's visit, his curiosity barely contained. The concubine, however, was more interested in Sir Karamov's appearance, her words dripping with admiration and flirtation. She introduced John as the child who would become the real lord, her intentions clear and calculating. Flirting shamelessly, the concubine expressed her regret at not having met someone as wonderful as Sir Karamov sooner. She suggested they head inside the inner castle, her words laced with hidden motives. Suddenly she paused, her voice taking on a desperate edge as she tried to regain Sir Karamov's attention, her words tumbling out in a rush. Sir Karamov, however, was more interested in the whereabouts of Lord Gayson, his voice commanding and authoritative as he took a seat on the Lord's seat. The others in the room were taken aback by his boldness, their surprise evident in their wide eyes and stunned expressions. Philip quickly spoke up, reminding Sir Karamov of his reputation and the impropriety of addressing Lord Gayson in such a manner. The concubine, however, was quick to dismiss Philip's concerns, her words sharp and decisive. She declared Sir Karamov's right to address Lord Gayson however he wished, asserting her own authority as the rightful lady of the house. Her words were a clear challenge to Philip's position, her intentions transparent to all. Philip's frustration was palpable as he realized the concubine's true intentions. She was seizing the opportunity to push John as the next lord, her actions a clear threat to his own ambitions. Karamaz, the commander of the Holy Empire, slams his sword down, his voice booming with authority as he demands silence. He then orders everyone to bring him alcohol, his tone leaving no room for argument. As he awaits his drink, Karamaz announces the arrival of an unexpected guest, his voice echoing through the castle. Outside the castle walls, the atmosphere is tense, a stark contrast to the commotion inside. Johann, meanwhile, is in the midst of rigorous training with his master, his mind focused on the task at hand. Yet, his thoughts briefly drift to Karamaz, the commanding figure he encountered earlier. Suddenly, daggers come flying at Johann, his master's voice ringing out in frustration at his lack of focus. Johann barely manages to block the daggers with his sword, but not without sustaining injuries. A dagger grazes his neck, drawing blood and causing him to wince in pain. His master berates him, revealing that the daggers were laced with poison, a deadly consequence of his lapse in concentration. Johann, trying to regain his composure, mentions the recent arrival of knights claiming to be the Emperor's personal guards, a detail that feels off to him. He ponders the situation, noting that this is the Eitz family's territory, and even imperial knights should not have such unrestricted access. His confusion deepens as he struggles to understand why the gates were shut and entry controlled in such a manner. His confusion turns to frustration as Kegel, the Empire's greatest assassin, questions the suspicious circumstances, challenging him to do something about it. Kegel then boasts about Karamov, the Emperor's direct knight, describing him as the strongest warrior on the continent and the core power of the Holy Empire. Even his armor is legendary. Johann, the protagonist, questions if Karamov is stronger than Kegel himself. Kegel remains silent, pondering Johann's question. He finally admits that if he were to face Karamov, he would turn around and run without hesitation. Johann argues that the results of a fight are something one would only know after fighting, but Kegel quickly silences him with a strike. Kegel scolds Johann, calling him an idiot and telling him to know his place, pointing out that he can't even control his own strength. He continues to berate Johann, calling him a half-witted brat who doesn't even know the basics of swordsmanship. Despite the insults, Johann resolves to try again. Kegel, accepting the challenge, tells Johann to come at him. They continue their sparring, with Johann struggling to land a hit. Kegel commands Johann to try again, pushing him to improve. Johann is being destroyed by Kegel's superior skills, but he persists. Kegel continues to urge Johann to try again, emphasizing the need for persistence. Frustrated, Johann wonders why his techniques aren't working. He realizes that he's not even using a real sword, just a scabbard, and questions why he can't cut with it. Johann then understands the flow of strength, realizing he needs to transfer the flow of strength and concentrate it at the sword's tip. As Johann swung his sword, a revelation began to dawn on him, the true meaning of controlling his strength becoming clearer with each movement. Kegel, the Empire's greatest assassin, watched in disbelief as the once dull sword of the young protagonist started to sharpen with an eerie glow, muttering about the unexpected turn of events. The sparring continued, with Johann holding his own, his newfound understanding of strength making him a formidable opponent. A moment of clarity struck Johann, realizing that if he tempered everything he had learned so far, he could achieve something extraordinary. With the proper amount of strength, he could turn the tide of the battle, and this thought fueled his determination. Johann locked in, his focus unwavering, the world around him fading into a blur as he honed in on his target. Kegel felt a chill run down his spine, sensing the danger in the air as Johann's sword gleamed with newfound power. Then, with a swift and powerful motion, Johann attacked, his sword slashing through the air with a force that left everyone in awe. Kegel's sword was cut clean in half, the sheer power of Johann's strike leaving the assassin shaken to his core. Johann's face brightened up with a mix of surprise and joy, realizing the extent of his newfound power as he exclaimed that he had finally cut through his opponent's defenses. Overwhelmed with excitement, Johann celebrates his achievement, declaring that he has finally grasped the technique. He laughs, claiming it wasn't even that hard. Kegel, the Empire's greatest assassin, watches silently, his expression darkening as he mutters that it must have been luck. Calling Johann by his full name, Kegel's voice echoes with a mix of disbelief and curiosity. Johann responds, ready for whatever comes next. Kegel prepares for another sparring session, his determination clear as he warns that this time he won't hold back. Before Kegel can finish his sentence, Johann attacks with an expertly executed sword technique, leaving Kegel stunned by the precision and skill. The swift and powerful strike sends Kegel crashing to the ground, defeated once again. Johann celebrates his victory, his joy evident as he revels in his newfound abilities. Kegel, lying on the ground, mutters in disbelief, wondering what this brat has become. He admits that he clearly taught Johann nothing but how to control his strength. Yet Johann can freely use the secret sword technique, Serpent's Tongue. Kegel realizes that Johann has perfectly absorbed a technique he only saw briefly on the very first day they met. And to make matters worse, Johann is using it more perfectly than he ever did. Kegel contemplates silently, his mind racing with the implications of Johann's rapid growth. The old assassin's experience tells him that unless a miracle happens, Johann has already become someone he cannot defeat. Kegel, the guild master of the strongest assassination guild of the Empire, Poison of Nasos, mutters quietly to himself. Looking at the celebrating Johann, Kegel can't help but think what an absurd brat he has become. With a sigh, Kegel announces that his teachings end here and that he will leave at sunrise. Kegel's announcement leaves Johann stunned, struggling to grasp why his training ends so abruptly. All he did was get a hang of using the sword, and now it feels like his journey is being cut short. Kegel, however, assures him that he already possesses everything necessary. As much as Kegel hates to admit it, he acknowledges that Johann has become stronger than him in less than a week. The revelation hangs in the air, a testament to Johann's rapid growth. Kegel expresses satisfaction, knowing his swordsmanship will continue onward through Johann. With a final piece of advice, he tells Johann to go live his life as he wishes. Acknowledging Johann's hard work, Kegel addresses him as Johann Altz, a hint of respect in his voice. Sitting beside a bone fire, Johann asks if Kegel is really leaving. Kegel confirms, explaining that he has never stayed too long in one place, not because he is an assassin, but simply because that is who he is. Curiosity piqued, Johann asks if Kegel knows anything about the ominous signs master, also known as the Black Wolf. Kegel confirms his knowledge, and Johann reveals his recent encounter and the disturbing dream that followed. Johann shares that he thought Kegel was the Omen when he first came for his head. Kegel clarifies that if he had killed Johann, that would have been his ominous sign, reminding him that ill fortune does not arrive in a fixed shape. Before leaving, Kegel offers some advice, emphasizing the importance of finding a weapon suited to Johann's strength. Kegel continues, explaining that Johann would need at least Danis steel to withstand his power. Johann, curious, asks what Danis steel is. Kegel begins to explain its legendary status. Danis steel, a metal imbued with magic, exists only as a legendary relic. Its creation method was lost long ago. Because of its rarity, weapons made from Danis steel are extremely rare, with only a few existing in the entire world. Johann, realizing the rarity, remarks that it must be expensive. Kegel confirms that even if one saved their whole life, they probably couldn't afford it, and it likely can't be bought with money at all. Confused by the advice, Johann questions why Kegel recommended something so unattainable. Kegel clarifies that he simply wanted Johann to find a weapon that suits his situation, not necessarily that specific one. Suspicion creeping in, Johann wonders if Kegel is hiding his true intentions because he is an assassin. Kegel, exasperated, snaps back, calling Johann a crazy brat for bringing up his profession at every turn. Kegel then points out that even the color of the Danis steel is unusual. He warns Johann that if he ever sees someone wearing Danis steel, even from far away, he should not look back and just run. Continuing his advice, Kegel tells Johann that if he does not know his limits, he won't live long. Johann, taking the words to heart, promises to keep that in mind. As Kegel stands up, Johann asks if he is leaving already. Kegel, with a serious tone, tells Johann to carve his next words deep into his bones. Do not fight opponents you cannot beat, Kegel warns, emphasizing that it is dangerous and he should run. If he must fight, he should use any means necessary and kill without fail. Kegel continues, saying that if Johann follows this rule, he likely won't die. With a final warning, Kegel tells Johann not to die and leaves. After Kegel leaves, Johann reflects on the advice, vowing to remember those words. If it's dangerous, run. If you cannot avoid it, kill and always survive. Johann repeats to himself, determined to remember his master's words. Meanwhile, in Eit's castle, a different scene unfolds. A concubine asks if the alcohol suits Karamov's taste. Disgusted, Karamov throws the wine glass, declaring it tastes like rotten piss, and orders it to be taken away. The concubine gasps at the wasted wine, questioning how he couldn't appreciate such an expensive drink. Karamov scoffs, declaring it a shame, and sarcastically remarks that the only alcohol better than this is in Lord Gessen's bedroom. Ignoring her, the concubine suggests he must be tired after his journey and proposes moving to a cozy bedroom instead. Karamov remains silent, offering no response. She persists, mentioning Lord Gessen's bedroom is very comfortable, and she's sure he won't be disappointed. With a suggestive tone, she adds that just the two of them could have a wonderful time together. Karamov cuts her off, telling her not to get lost in her fantasies. The concubine changes her tone, urging that they don't have much time as Lord Gessen will arrive late tonight and she should begin his reception. Suddenly, Karamov senses something amiss. Standing up abruptly, he declares he was getting sick of this anyway and decides to enjoy himself. With a swift and brutal motion, he kills the concubine with his bare hands, crushing her neck and coldly referring to it as the entertainment known as slaughter. Unseen by Karamov, Phillips watches in shock from his hiding place, silently covering his mouth in fear. The scene shifts abruptly to Johann returning to the village. Johann looks terrified as he surveys the village, whispering to himself about what this could mean. Because his stomach is twisting itself into knots, Johann stares at the village engulfed in flames, the chaos unfolding before his eyes, leaving him in disbelief. As Johann grapples with the sight of the burning village, chaos erupts elsewhere. The lord and his guards spot thick smoke billowing from their castle, their faces twisting in shock and confusion. Soldiers shout in panic, demanding answers about the sudden fire consuming the Eit's estate. A trembling soldier stutters, admitting he has no idea what is happening. The fire is spreading rapidly, and the lord must return immediately. With a grunt of frustration, Gezin realizes the severity of the situation and knows he must act fast. Spurring his horse, Gezin races toward the castle, his mind filled with dread. The wind whips against him as he pushes his steed to its limits, desperate to reach his home. Upon arriving at the gate, he finds the Akitan mercenaries waiting, their presence ominous and unwelcome. The sight of them sends a chill down his spine, but he has no time to waste. The gate creaks open, and the mercenaries smirk devilishly, taunting him. They mock his tardiness and call him slow and dull, urging him to hurry. Their words cut deep, but Gezin pushes forward, ignoring their jibes. As he rushes inside, the mercenaries warn him that Sir Karamov is not a patient man. The urgency in their voices only fuels his desperation to find out what is happening. Inside the castle, a horrifying scene unfolds. Bodies litter the ground, and mercenaries stand waiting, their expressions cold and unfeeling. The sight of the carnage leaves him stunned and disoriented. His heart shatters into pieces as he discovers the lifeless bodies of his children and concubine. The reality of their deaths crashes down on him, leaving him gasping for air. Horror grips him, his voice barely a whisper as he struggles to comprehend the devastation before him. The world around him blurs, and he feels as though he is falling into an endless abyss. Suddenly, Karamov steps into the room, his presence commanding and cold. The atmosphere grows heavier, and Gezin feels a surge of anger mixed with fear. Karamov's voice cuts through the tension, accusing Gezin of being late. The words hang in the air, and Gezin's grip tightens around his axe, his knuckles turning white. With a trembling voice, Gezin demands to know what Karamov thinks he is doing. His eyes burn with a mix of fury and desperation, his axe ready for battle. Gezin's scream echoes through the castle, his voice filled with pain and rage. He demands answers, his heart pounding in his chest as he faces Karamov. Karamov's response is cold and final. He accuses Gezin of attempted assassination of the emperor and high treason. By the emperor's decree, House Eitz shall be eradicated. The words strike Gezin like a physical blow, leaving him reeling. Gezin's voice booms with disbelief, denying the absurd accusations. He claims Karamov is fabricating charges to justify his execution, the words dripping with desperation. Driven by fury, Gezin charges at Karamov, vowing not to let him do as he pleases. The air crackles with tension as the confrontation escalates. Karamov unsheathes his sword, the blade gleaming with a cold, deadly light. He commands the horn to be blown, signaling the start of a brutal purge. The sword inscribed with ancient runes points towards Gezin as Karamov orders the retrieval of the Atitiev family seal. He declares the eradication of everyone in the territory, aiming to erase the land from the map entirely. The mercenaries blow the horn, the signal echoing through the air like a death knell. The sound sends a chill down the spines of all who hear it. With a thirst for blood, the mercenaries charge at the village, their faces twisted with savage determination. The ground trembles under their relentless advance. After some time, a soldier stands before the priest, who is tied up on the ground. The priest's eyes reflect a mix of fear and defiance. The soldier sneers, calling the priest a vicious bastard. The priest groans in pain, his voice barely audible. The mercenary places his sword on the priest's neck, demanding to know the whereabouts of the pig's bastard son. He threatens to send the priest to the god he adores so much. Just as the mercenary is about to strike, Jana appears from behind, his presence sudden and unexpected. The mercenary shouts to kill, his voice filled with rage. The mercenary's command hangs in the air, but before he can act, a swift motion cuts him down from behind. The sudden strike leaves him no chance to react, his body crumpling to the ground in an instant. The priest's body trembles in shock, his eyes wide with disbelief at the sudden turn of events. The unexpected intervention leaves him momentarily speechless. Johann steps forward, standing valiantly before the shaken priest. The priest, recognizing him, exclaims in surprise, his voice filled with a mix of relief and awe. Johann acknowledges the priest with a calm and determined gaze. Confusion fills the air as Johann demands to know what is happening. The priest, still shaken, stammers that he doesn't know, his voice barely steady. He then reveals the horrifying truth. Imperial troops are killing villagers on sight. The priest's voice trembles as he delivers even more devastating news. Lord Gason has likely been killed as well. The weight of the words hangs heavily in the air. Johann's eyes widen in disbelief, his voice barely a whisper as he asks for confirmation, hoping against hope that the priest's words aren't true. The priest's expression darkens as he reveals even more dire news. The entire village is being burned to the ground, leaving nothing behind. Johann's face hardens with determination as he realizes the urgency of the situation. Just as Johann is about to rush off, a cry pierces the air, catching his attention. His head snaps toward the sound, recognizing the voice instantly, without hesitation. Johann moves swiftly toward the source of the voice, his heart pounding with urgency. The priest watches in surprise as Johann strides away. Johann's steps falter as he finds Dell crying, her small frame shaking with sobs. He kneels beside her, his voice softening as he asks if it's really her. Relief washes over Johann as he sees that Dell is safe. He quickly tells her it's dangerous here and urges her to come to him. Johann's gaze shifts, and his heart sinks as he notices Dell's father tied down and riddled with arrows, lifeless. The sight is almost too much to bear. Dell's voice quivers as she calls out to Johann, her words barely coherent through her tears. She points to her father, her world shattering around her. Johann freezes, horror gripping him as he takes in the scene. The reality of the situation crashes down on him, leaving him momentarily paralyzed. Memories of Dell's father flash through Johann's mind. The stark contrast between the man he knew and the lifeless body before him, almost too much to comprehend. Johann forces himself to turn away, scanning the surroundings with a mix of urgency and dread. He knows they need to move, but the weight of what he's just witnessed threatens to overwhelm him. Stumbling upon a village now silent, Johann's eyes widen at the sight of countless lifeless villagers scattered across the ground, a stark contrast to the memories of laughter and warmth that once filled these streets. Memories of joyous gatherings and shared smiles flash through his mind, each one a dagger twisting in his heart as he recalls the vibrant life that once thrived here. His teeth grind together, anger surging through him like a wildfire, threatening to consume him whole. Spotting Dell amidst the chaos, Johann rushes over and insists she stay close to Father Valberg, his voice firm and leaving no room for argument. Dell, though shaken, nods in agreement, her small frame trembling. Without another word, he turns on his heel and strides towards the castle, his determination palpable. Father Valberg, taken aback, calls out in confusion, his voice echoing through the desolate village. Father Valberg's pleas grow more desperate as he warns Johann against his reckless advance, urging him to flee instead. Johann's gaze locks onto a gruesome display, a severed head mounted for all to see, and his stomach churns. Recognition dawns, and his worst fears are confirmed. It is his father, Lord Gessen. A sign below the head proclaims Lord Gessen's execution for treason against the Emperor, warning that anyone who retrieves his corpse without permission will face the same fate, signed by Imperial Knight Karamov. Johann's face contorts with rage, veins bulging as he struggles to contain his fury. A mercenary from the wolves of Akitan spots Johann and sneers, questioning if he is Lord Gessen's bastard son and mocking his return. The mercenary continues to taunt Johann, expressing surprise at his presence and questioning his motives. In a flash, Johann's sword slices through the sign and the stake holding his father's head, his actions swift and decisive. The flag of the Akitan mercenaries falls to the ground, its descent slow and almost ceremonial. Without hesitation, Johann steps on it, his boots pressing down on the symbol of his enemies as he continues forward. The wolves of Akitan, witnessing this act of defiance, erupt into furious shouts, their voices filled with rage and disbelief. Their leader's command echoes through the air, a clear order to eliminate the threat before them. Johann responds with a whirlwind of steel, his sword cutting through the mercenaries like a scythe through wheat. Bodies fall, cleaved in two, the battlefield becoming a grotesque display of his prowess. His sword moves with a precision and ease, slicing through the mercenaries as if they were made of butter. One by one they fall, until none are left standing, the battlefield silent once more. With the mercenaries dispatched, Johann slowly walks towards the castle, his steps heavy with uncertainty. Questions swirl in his mind, each step bringing more doubt than the last. He knows his father was right that he should be running away, but something pulls him back. If he goes back, he fears it will be for nothing, that he will die without purpose. Amidst his turmoil, a familiar voice cuts through the chaos of the battlefield, calling his name. He turns to see a heavily injured knight, barely clinging to life, and recognizes him as Philip. Philip removes his helmet, revealing a face marked by pain and exhaustion. With his last breaths, Philip urges Johann to flee, to run away and live, knowing that staying would only bring death. He offers his helmet to Johann, a symbol of his hope that one day Johann would become Lord. Johann accepts the helmet silently, the weight of its significance settling over him like an invisible cloak. A shadow of sadness flickers across his face, hinting at the turmoil brewing within. His master's words echoed in his mind, a reminder of the stark difference in skill level that separates him from true greatness. The advice continues, a stern warning to flee if danger arises, no matter the circumstances. The opponent is the Emperor's knight, a foe so formidable even his master advised retreat without hesitation. But something within him stirs, a defiance that refuses to back down. Another fragment of his master's wisdom surfaces, a chilling directive that if fighting becomes inevitable, he must be prepared to kill. With a resolute nod, he places the helmet upon his head, the time for hesitation long past. Determination radiates from him as he stands tall, ready to face whatever comes next. Pushing through the castle gates, he steps into a den of mercenaries, their presence doing little to deter his resolve. The room is filled with the wolves of a chieftain, their surprise evident as they scramble to understand how he breached their defenses. Wasting no time, Johann launches into action with a mighty punch, his battle cry echoing through the chamber. Mercenaries fly across the room, their bodies no match for the force behind his strike. With a thunderous command, he challenges his unseen foe to reveal themselves, his strength overwhelming the room full of mercenaries. Each punch sends another enemy crashing to the ground, the sheer power behind his attacks clearing the room with terrifying efficiency. Clearing the room with terrifying efficiency, Johann continued charging forward, his momentum unstoppable. A menacing aura radiated from him, his presence alone enough to intimidate anyone in his path. Suddenly, Karamov appeared, his presence adding a new layer of tension to the already charged atmosphere. Karamov scoffed, recognizing Johann as the runaway son of Eitz, someone he thought he had seen the last of. He sneered, recalling their last encounter in front of the castle, addressing Johann by his full name with a tone of disdain. Johann, however, wasn't interested in exchanging pleasantries or reminiscing about the past. He declared himself as a man pushed to his limits, his anger palpable. Karamov taunted him, suggesting that Johann should have kept running if he wanted to live, implying that Johann's life meant nothing to him. With a swift motion, Karamov pulled his sword, signaling the start of a deadly confrontation. He pointed the tip of his sword at Johann, challenging him to come at him if he truly wanted to die. Johann, fueled by determination and anger, shouted back that he didn't need to be told what to do, as that was his intention all along. Driven by his determination, Johann clashes with Karamov in a fierce battle, eerily mirroring his nightmare where his head was cleanly severed. The battle intensifies, each strike echoing the fury and desperation of the combatants. Johann launches a swift attack with his sword, aiming to gain the upper hand. Karamov expertly defends, his movements precise and calculated. Despite Johann's relentless attacks with all his strength, Karamov's superior sword cuts through Johann's blade effortlessly. the difference in steel quality and sharpness starkly evident. With a powerful swing, Karamov cleaves Johan's sword in half, leaving Johan momentarily vulnerable. Quickly regaining his balance, Johan grabs a new sword and prepares to continue the fight. Charging at Karamov with renewed determination, Johan refuses to back down. Karamov smiles beneath his armor, finding amusement in the intense battle. Once again, Johan's sword is effortlessly cut in half, the superior quality of Karamov's blade evident. Johan persists, repeatedly picking up new swords, but each time his blade is cut through like butter. Despite his relentless efforts, Johan finds himself pushed back by Karamov's overwhelming skill and strength. Karamov launches another powerful attack with his sword, the force behind his strike unyielding. This time Johan ducks down, narrowly dodging the sword as Karamov cleanly cuts through the pillar behind him. The pillar is sliced cleanly in half, a testament to Karamov's precision and the sharpness of his blade. The pillar beam crumbles to the ground, debris scattering everywhere. Karamov observes the destruction with a hint of curiosity, finding the situation rather interesting. He acknowledges that this opponent is far more formidable than Britz ever was. The debris from the fallen pillar creates a thick smoke screen, obscuring the battlefield. Suddenly, a mercenary is thrown out of the smoke, catching Karamov off guard. Without hesitation, he cuts the mercenary in half, thinking it was an enemy, and finds the encounter enjoyable. A grin spreads across his face as he demands more entertainment. Out of nowhere, Johan appears and attacks with his sword, catching Karamov by surprise. Karamov quickly raises his armored hand to defend, relying on his incredibly sturdy armor to block the blow. But the armor is sliced through, and his hand is injured. Despite injuring Karamov, Johan's sword is destroyed in the process. Karamov quickly regains his balance, ready for the next move. The confrontation continues with both fighters locked in intense combat. Karamov can't believe that Johan just cut through his Danis steel armor. He is shocked and questions how his seemingly impenetrable armor was so easily sliced. Before Karamov can even process his shock, Johan is already picking up another sword, ready to continue the fight. Karamov's disbelief echoes through the room as he declares that humans are incapable of harming Danis steel, questioning just who Johan is, without hesitation. Johan charges at Karamov, his determination evident in every step. The two continue to exchange attacks, Karamov's disbelief growing with each clash. Karamov is stunned by Johan's strength, something he has never encountered before, but he quickly composes himself. Johan begins to attack Karamov continuously with his sword, his movements relentless. Karamov dodges the attacks, charging in himself and criticizing Johan's brute strength and lack of finesse. With a swift stab, Karamov attacks, his precision a stark contrast to Johan's wild swings. Johan manages to defend against the attack, but his sword shatters under the pressure. Undeterred, Johan picks up another sword, his resolve unshaken. The two prepare for another attack, Karamov mocking Johan's inability to properly block a simple thrust. Johan raises his sword high, his instincts guiding his every move. Karamov realizes the danger Johan poses and decides he needs to finish the fight quickly. Johan strikes with a powerful downward slash, his blade cutting through the air like a storm. Karamov braces himself, muttering about the wide slash he anticipates. Karamov swiftly raises his sword to defend, the clash of metal echoing through the battlefield as he blocks the incoming attack. With a swift motion, Karamov's blade cleaves into Johan's sword, the force of the strike sending a shiver down Johan's spine. In a horrifying instant, Johan's head is cut clean off and goes flying, the reality of the situation hitting hard. But wait, it was all in Johan's mind. As he realizes this, Karamov taunts him to come at him, calling him a brat. Johan, sweating bullets, thinks about his precious head coming right off. Snapping back to reality, Johan instantly changes his sword path, using Kegel's technique to outmaneuver Karamov. Johan's attack becomes refined, as if he's an expert swordmaster, his movements precise and calculated. In a flash, Johan's sword lands on Karamov, the unexpected strike catching him off guard. The sword clashes against Karamov's Danis armor, the impact resonating like a thunderclap. With brute strength, Johan slashes, destroying Karamov's Danish armor, the force of the blow leaving Karamov stunned and vulnerable. Karamov screams in agony, the pain of his shattered armor echoing through the battlefield. Through his anguish, Karamov's eyes lock onto Johan's incoming fist, a brutal follow-up to the devastating blow. Johan's fist connects, crushing the already damaged Danish armor, deforming it further with his sheer strength. The once mighty armor now lay twisted and broken, a testament to the relentless assault. Karamov spits out blood, the metallic taste mixing with the bitterness of defeat. He crumples to the ground, pain racking his entire body, his strength waning with each passing second. With a final surge of defiance, Karamov looks up, his gaze meeting Johan's. Realization dawns on Karamov as he recognizes the technique, the truth behind Johan's power revealing itself. This is Kegel's technique, assassin swordsmanship. Johan A/TZ had been hiding his true skill all along. Johan then points his shattered sword at Karamov, a silent threat that spoke volumes. Karamov curses his own lapse in judgment, completely letting his guard down. The weight of his injuries bears down on Karamov, each breath a struggle, each movement an agony. Johan removes his helmet, revealing his face to the defeated commander. The battles end within sight. With his helmet off, Johan greets the defeated commander, his voice echoing in the tense silence. He questions the commander's motives, demanding to know why he fought so fiercely. The commander, Karamov, responds with a cough. His body battered but his spirit unbroken. He declares that everything he did was for his imperial majesty. Karamov continues, explaining that the Holy Empire is now more unstable than ever. His Majesty has unsheathed the imperial sword to correct the empire's course. The sword known as Mavkara is mentioned, its significance hanging in the air like an unspoken threat. Karamov is gravely injured, coughing up blood, his strength waning but his resolve steadfast. Despite his injuries, Karamov is moved by Johan's strength and skill. He exclaims Johan's name, his voice filled with admiration and respect. Karamov reveals that for decades he has crossed battlefields and fought countless knights. But he has never encountered anyone as strong as Johan before. With a plea, Karamov asks Johan to come with him to the Empire, his voice echoing with desperation and hope. His Majesty needs a strong talent like Johan, Karamov insists, his words painting a picture of a desperate empire in need of a hero. The Empire's endless gold will grant Johan glory, Karamov promises. Vast and fertile lands will be his, a reward for his unmatched strength and skill. His Majesty himself will even appoint Johan as his imperial knight, Karamov declares, the offer hanging in the air like a golden opportunity. Become the Emperor's sword, Karamov urges, his voice echoing with the weight of his words. Johan remains silent, his thoughts unreadable. Endless gold, he echoes, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. Staring upward, Johan's thoughts swirled in confusion. This was strange, he thought, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. That was the life he once dreamed of, yet now it felt hollow. The emptiness gnawed at him, leaving him speechless. A sudden resolve hardened his expression. He refused, the words echoing in his mind like a battle cry. Karamov's confusion was palpable. What was happening? The unexpected refusal threw him off balance. Accusations flew from Johan's lips like arrows. Karamov had killed the Aonolan family and innocent serfs. Screw him, Johan thought, his anger boiling over. These people had done no wrong. Serfs? Karamov's confusion deepened, the word hanging in the air like a question mark. Disbelief crept into Karamov's voice. Johan was rejecting his offer over serfs? The absurdity of it all left him stunned. Karamov's teeth gnashed together, his frustration building like a storm. Then came the outburst. Who cared about their deaths? Karamov screamed, his voice dripping with contempt. Was Johan's mother a low-born serf? They were insects, weak vermin, unworthy of consideration. The strong drank the blood of the weak, Karamov declared, his words echoing like a twisted mantra. That was this world's law, he believed, his voice ringing with conviction. A quiet apology escaped Johan's lips. He was sorry, his voice barely a whisper, the weight of his actions pressing down on him. his fists clenched, the struggle within him evident. He couldn't control his strength, the realization hitting him like a tidal wave. Overwhelmed by his uncontrollable strength, Johann unleashes a devastating punch straight into Karamov's face. The impact sends Karamov crashing down, the force of the blow too much to withstand. Johann doesn't hold back, continuing his relentless attack with a fury that seems unstoppable. With each punch, his anger grows, directing his rage at the Emperor as he yells out his frustration. Karamov's armor deforms under the relentless assault, his words about worthless lives only fueling Johann's fury further. Johann's punches keep landing, each one more powerful than the last, destroying Karamov piece by piece. In a fit of rage, Johann screams, questioning what makes Karamov think he's so great, challenging his right to judge who deserves to live and who doesn't. The relentless assault leaves Karamov utterly destroyed, his defenses completely shattered. Blood flows freely from Karamov, dripping and painting the area red, a stark contrast to the once pristine surroundings. Karamov lay gravely injured, his body battered and broken, a stark contrast to his once formidable presence. Johann finally stops his relentless assault, his fists no longer raining down on the fallen commander. Standing before the gravely injured Karamov, Johann's presence looms large, a silent testament to the battle's end. Johann turns away, his back to the fallen commander, perhaps signaling the end of their confrontation. With a weak voice, Karamov mutters, calling Johann a fool for not taking his offer. Karamov raises his hand feebly, his words barely audible as he laments the missed opportunity. "Now it's too late," he whispers, his voice barely a whisper as he points at Johann, the one who broke the Emperor's sword. Karamov's final words echo ominously, declaring that Johann will know only suffering from this point on. Johann listens silently to Karamov's last words, his expression unreadable as he takes in the gravity of the moment. Karamov's hand loses its strength, falling limp as his life force wanes. Then Karamov dies, his body going still, the light fading from his eyes. Johann reflects on how this world accepts death so naturally, his thoughts turning to his past where survival meant thinking only of money. But his thoughts take a darker turn, remembering the slaughter of everyone in his territory. His family and neighbors were all butchered and burned, the memories fueling his resolve. Even if the whole world becomes his enemy, Johann stands firm in his conviction, declaring he only did what had to be done and will never regret his actions. No matter what anyone says, his resolve remained unshaken. This is how he chooses to live, standing firm against the tide of opposition, consequences be damned. Outside the castle, the air thick with tension, a lone figure stands resolute. This is where the next chapter unfolds, beyond the walls where secrets and shadows lurk. Guarding the gate, mercenaries stand like statues, their eyes scanning the horizon. They are the first line of defense, the gatekeepers of whatever lies within. Jane steps forward, her presence commanding attention. She enters the castle, her determination palpable, ready to uncover the truth. With a voice that brooks no argument, Jane demands answers, her question hanging heavy in the air. She needs to know the truth, no matter how grim. The injured mercenaries, their voices barely above a whisper, recount the horrors they witnessed. It was a scene of utter devastation, a sight that will haunt them forever. Suddenly, chaos erupts as a figure barges in, beaten and bloodied. The mercenaries recoil, their faces etched with shock and fear. With bare hands, the intruder took Sir Karamov's head, the mercenaries' voices trembling with disbelief. Jane stands in stunned silence, the weight of the revelation pressing down on her. That was the last they saw of Sir Karamov, his fate sealed in blood and violence. The mercenaries' words echo in the hall, a grim testament to the brutality that unfolded. Jane's voice cuts through the tension, demanding proof. Without evidence, the tale seems too fantastical to believe. The mercenaries stammer, their confusion mirroring Jane's own. They saw it with their own eyes, yet the truth seems too incredible to grasp. A mercenary approaches Jane, informing her that the pursuit party is ready. With a nod, she acknowledges, her mind already racing ahead to the chase. Inside the castle, Jane's voice rings out, her orders clear and concise. The mercenaries snap to attention, ready to carry out her commands. The order is given, the target clear. Chase him down and kill him. The mercenaries echo, their voices filled with determination. Johann Eitz. The name hangs in the air, the target of their pursuit. A traitor to his own bloodline, his fate sealed by his actions, a filthy traitor. Jane's voice drips with contempt. And the one suspected of murdering Sir Karamov, his crimes too great to ignore. Carrying Sir Karamov's lifeless body, Johann flees the scene, the weight of the corpse and the situation bearing down on him. Jane's voice rings out, commanding the hunt to begin. She orders the pursuit party to bring him back, dead or alive, her words echoing with determination. Mercenaries surround Johann, their weapons drawn, ready to strike. The hunt is on and he's the prey, but Johann is not so easily caught. With a burst of strength, he destroys the mercenaries, his power overwhelming. His blades flash, slicing through the attackers with deadly precision. The mercenaries stand no chance against his relentless assault. One by one they fall, their bodies littering the ground. Johann's strength is unmatched, his fury unstoppable. Jane warns her comrades about Johann's incredible strength, comparing him to a dragon. She cautions them to never face him alone, her voice filled with urgency. She orders the roads sealed off, determined to drive Johann relentlessly all night until he's exhausted. The hunt intensifies, the net tightening around Johann. The mercenaries, realizing Sir Karamov is dead, hesitate for a moment. Their shock is palpable. But they quickly regroup, their resolve hardening. Jane's voice cuts through the chaos, her determination unwavering. They must bring Johann to justice, no matter the cost. As the pursuit continues, Johann remembers Philip's words. He recalls the instructions to find the stable, mount a warhorse, and flee. Philip's voice echoes in his mind, urging him to survive at all costs. The stable is his only hope, a beacon of escape in the chaos. Exhaustion creeps in, but Johann pushes forward. He's so close to the stable, to freedom. The thought of escape spurs him on. He muses that hiding Karamov's corpse was supposed to cause confusion, but the pursuit party acted faster than he expected. The plan seems to have backfired, the hunt more intense than ever. Realizing Sihiunisel's armor could serve as a shield, Johann decides to keep carrying him, hoping it will throw off the pursuit. With a grunt, he steels himself and pushes forward, determined to escape. He enters the stable looking for a way to rest and regroup. Inside, he finds a majestic war horse, recognizing it as Geison's. Grateful for the unexpected find, he thanks his luck. With the war horse, he figures he can at least rest a bit on horseback, gaining some much-needed respite. Looking at the majestic horse, he decides to name it Philip, pleased to make its acquaintance. He gazes at the horse, feeling a moment of connection. With a smile, he officially names the horse Philip, ready to ride off. Not too far off, the Akitan mercenaries spot something shining, convinced it's the glow of Dana's steel, and search every inch of the area. Their conviction grows as they believe their target is definitely nearby. Suddenly, they hear hoofbeats, realizing Johann is making his move. Johann jumps onto Philip, ready to ride out. With Karamov's corpse still in tow, he makes his escape, hoping to lose his pursuers. The wolves of Akitan spot him and raise the alarm, shouting that Johann Eitz is escaping on horseback. Johann spurs his horse, galloping away from his pursuers. The mercenaries, not about to let their prey escape, prepare their crossbows and take aim, determined to shoot him down. A volley of bolts flies towards Johann, the night air filled with the deadly whistling of their flight. In a grim display of pragmatism, Johann uses Karamov's corpse as a shield, blocking the incoming bolts. Riding throughout the entire night, Johann manages to lose his pursuers and finds himself deep within the Black Forest. Dismounting, he digs a hole, the physical labor a brief respite from the night's chaos. Pausing, he considers the depth, deciding it should be deep enough. Despite Karamov's twisted nature, not burying him doesn't feel right. In any case, he turns his attention to the armor, noting its expensive appearance. His eyes are drawn to Karamov's sword, its craftsmanship immediately apparent. Picking it up, he is surprised by its weight, light yet solid, a testament to the Danis steel it's made of. Drawing the blade, he notices an ancient imperial script etched into the metal, a mystery that piques his curiosity. The inscription reads, "I am the one who recovers the crest," a clue to the sword's hidden history. Johann stares at the sword, wondering about its origins and the stories it could tell. His gaze fixed on the sword, the words "crest recoverer" echoed in his mind, sparking a sense of foreboding. Could it be referring to retrieving family crests? Even its name sounds ominous, as if this sword is his natural enemy. Deciding to take the sword with him for now, he turned his attention to the armor, burying it with a sense of finality. It was a waste, but carrying it around would not help him at all, so he vowed to come back for it later. With the armor buried and the place covered, he finished his task, wondering if it was good enough. Karamov, the Emperor's knight, had been laid to rest, but the weight of his death hung heavy in the air. Once word of his death spread, the entire empire would be after him, and countless knights would try to avenge him. Remembering Karamov's words, he knew that from this point on, his life would only know suffering. His life had already known suffering long before he beat Karamov to death, and now it seemed to be his constant companion. What could he do now? House Eitz had been burned to the ground, and he hadn't managed to bring even a single coin with him. He couldn't even sell this precious armor. His arms trembled with exhaustion, and he decided to rest a bit and think. Just as he settled down, a dangerous presence made itself known, sending a chill down his spine. A sudden movement catches his attention, and he quickly turns back, heart pounding with dread. There, towering before him, was a black wolf, its presence sending a wave of shock through him. Frustration and despair flood his thoughts as he realizes the worst possible timing for this encounter. Of all the moments, this had to be when he was at his weakest. In this state, he didn't stand a chance. His hands trembled, barely able to hold his sword, let alone fight off the beast before him. With a desperate plan forming, he knew he had to reach his horse and somehow escape from this nightmare. But fate had other plans. The sound of approaching mercenaries echoed through the air, one of them shouting about finding his horse. The wolves of Akitan swarmed around, their voices filled with triumph as they captured his war horse and closed in on his location. The wolves of Akitan were already here, their presence sending a chill down his spine as he realized the gravity of his situation. Suddenly, one of the mercenaries pointed in his direction, shouting about hearing something, and all eyes turned towards him. Every weapon was now aimed at him, the tension in the air thick enough to cut with a knife. A monster stood before him, and the pursuit party was right behind. His situation couldn't get any worse. With no room for escape, he felt the weight of his predicament crashing down on him. As the wolf leaped over him, he couldn't help but wonder if this was the end of his journey. Time seemed to slow as the wolf soared above, and he braced himself for the inevitable. The wolf descends upon the mercenaries, tearing through them with relentless fury. Their screams echo as the beast's attack leaves devastation in its wake. Panic sets in among the mercenaries as they scramble, their cries for help filling the air. The wolf's rampage continues, leaving no room for escape. Johann watches in disbelief as the wolf seemingly ignores him, clearing a path through the chaos. Realizing the opportunity, he seizes the moment, pushing his exhaustion aside. Kneeling weakly, Johann gathers what little strength he has left, his body trembling from the strain. Father Valberg urges himself to move, knowing that staying put means certain doom. Johann echoes the sentiment. Realizing the urgency of the situation, with a sudden burst of energy, Johann dashes away, his body moving faster than his mind can process. He mounts his horse, the animal sensing the urgency as it readies itself for the ride. With a powerful surge, the horse charges forward, its speed matching the intensity of the moment. The horse's speed is astonishing, leaving the chaos behind in a blur of motion. As he rides, Johann's thoughts drift to Father Valberg, the memory of the priest urging him onward. The wind rushes past him, carrying him further away from the battle. The horse's hooves pounding against the ground, Images of the townspeople flash through his mind, their faces a reminder of what he's fighting for. Memories of the village flood his thoughts, each one a vivid reminder of the life he once knew, and the people he's determined to protect. With a heavy heart, Johann bids farewell to the life he once knew, knowing that the time has come to face his destiny.